So, you want to make a glorp. Well, let me show you how to make a glorp. Look at this little guy, isn't he cool? So the easiest way to make a glorp would be if you had some glorp juice on you. You could just feed any cat some glorp juice and boom, they're all glorped up. That's the easiest way to turn any cat into a glorp. Now, this is hard to come by. I understand if you don't have any. You know, kind of tough to find. So, what we can do instead is we can use Adobe Photoshop to turn your cat into a glorp. Let me show you exactly how that works. So, let me just open this photo of my cat, Kira. She's a cool little cat. And so first off, what we want to do is, if you've ever used Photoshop, you know this one. Right-click the layer and convert to Smart Object. So this just lets us edit stuff and change the edits down the line if we want to make other changes. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to click and drag this layer down to this plus icon right here. And what that'll do is it'll duplicate the layer. So now we have two versions of it. And the reason we're doing this is because we're going to cut our cat out of this layer. So to do that, the easiest way is to, like 4 icons down in the toolbar, there is the magic wand tool or the object selection tool or the quick selection tool. Any of these work. And just click select subject at the top of this bar here. So it'll automatically do a selection, and usually it does a pretty good job. Now right here on this image, it kind of selected a little more than it needed to here. So it's selecting some of this blanket. So what I am going to do is, you can use any selection tool to adjust this. But I am going to use the quick selection tool here. And I have it on this second setting here in the top. So what that means is if I click and drag, then it adds to the selection. Which I don't want to do that, so I'm going to Control Z. And if I hold Alt when I do it, it switches to the minus. So that means that when I hold Alt and I click and drag, it'll remove it from the selection. So if there's too much that's selected, I can click and drag around in the general area. Alright, that's a little better. I can keep going. Normally it makes sense to have a higher brush size, but it's not a huge deal. Quick select does a lot of the work for you. Alright, that's pretty good. So now after that, let me zoom out here. So let's go ahead and hit select and mask at the very top. And this just gives us some more controls on selecting and kind of refining it a little bit. Because you can see, like, it's kind of blocky and all that. Now, this is a glorp meme. It doesn't need to be perfect or anything, but just to show you how to get a little more refined edge on everything, there's something we can do at the very top, the easiest one, literally just a button that says Refine Hair. This will work on humans and on animals, but it just searches for hair follicles and basically just blends it out. So that already helped quite a bit. But first off, you can see that sometimes it might get rid of some of the selection here. So this red area, obviously this red area is the stuff that's not selected. You can change the view mode up here in the top right. So you can see the default is onion skin, which isn't really helpful when you're going on top of the same picture. So I like to do overlay, just so it's a little more clear on what you're selecting. But you can also do like black and white, so you can see the exact shape. You know, whatever works for you. But I like doing overlay. So to fill in this area again, what we need to do is on the very left on the toolbar, there's the quick selection tool again. So we can use this, maybe increase my brush size using the right bracket on the keyboard, or any other way you want to increase that. And then you can just click and drag and fill in this red spot here. And because it's close to the edge, I don't really need to be careful about it, so I'm kind of lucky about that. But let's say, oh, I needed to include this thing, right? Like, there's something here I needed to do. I can make the brush smaller and then do this, and it'll try to kind of fill in the shape. So I'm going to Control Z that. And so now that looks pretty good, but there's still this kind of hard edge here that doesn't look great. So if you go to the second tool down, there's Refine Edge, which this basically does the same thing as Refine Hair, but you have direct control over it. So now that I have that brush selected, I can go down, and I put it like in the... So I put the middle of the cursor kind of in the middle of where the edge is, and it'll pretty much feather it out and have more of a natural fur-like texture to the edge. So I can do that. I can do that here, you know, I can do it everywhere. You know, it doesn't... Ooh, actually, I'm going to undo that because that looks kind of bad right there. I'm actually going to use the brush and increase my selection here because I want to see what's going on. Okay, I'm going to Control Z that. So I just need a little bit more edge here because that's like the edge of her ear. And then I'll use the go back to the Refine Edge brush and put it over the top of this edge. On the bottom of the edge. I'll undo that. And just do it out here. I'll just leave that there. Sometimes it doesn't work the way I want it to, and that's okay. Alright, so now I'm going to go in the top ear here. Boom. Do that. That looks pretty good. And then the bottom of the ear. Maybe make my brush smaller. And just go. And there we go. That's all feathered. So again, doesn't have to be perfect, you know. You can touch this up however much you need to. I just find that like really hard edges with fur doesn't usually work. So just kind of clean that up. And again, does not have to be perfect at all. But just whatever you want to do. I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I tend to do that. But you have some other controls here. If you want it, you know, if you want the easy way out, you can smooth it, which I shouldn't do that much. But you know, that'll smooth out any hard edges. Oh, uh-oh. I don't know what I did there. Whoops. Don't do what I just did. And you can even just feather it too if you don't want to bother with all the brush nonsense. That'll do a decent amount. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So I'm going to hit OK. And now that I have my selection, all I need to do here is just mask out this layer. So just make sure you have the top layer selected and hit the mask icon either in this bar here or down in the layers panel. So I'm going to hit that. So now, if I turn off the bottom layer, boom, we got our cat cut out. So now it's really easy to edit everything. But the next step here, sometimes with the effects we're going to be using, the layer mask kind of gets in the way on this top layer. So I'm going to right-click the layer and convert to a smart object again. So that way, now the smart object has the layer mask included. Cool. So next up, we can go at the very top, and this is kind of where the creativity is here. Actually, I'm changing my mind. Okay, so instead of doing the fun stuff right away, I'm going to add the color onto the cat. So at the bottom in the layers panel, this middle icon here is for, you can add a new layer, and it's a solid color at the very top. So we want to make this green. This is going to be the silly alien glorp color that we're using. I'm going to make it a little yellower. All right. Then we can hit OK. All right. That's not very helpful. So what we can do now is if we hold Alt on our keyboard and then go in between the two layers, you see this little icon come up. This is called a clipping mask. And so what that does is it makes our green layer only apply to the pixels that exist on our second layer. So if I do that, then boom, it's green. Doesn't have any details though. So what we need to do to fix that is we need to change our blend mode. So this is at the kind of the top area of the layers section. So once you click it, you're brought with all these different options. It's hard to explain what all they do. So I just go off visuals. So what looks good? So darken, you know, there's progress there. Multiply, that looks decent. Linear burn looks all right. Some of them are crazy. That's like that. I don't know. That's more like radiation. I don't know. I like overlay or soft light, or I don't know. Color's a good one. I'll just go with color. So just pick whichever one you want. And to make it work a little better, what you can also do is you can add a black and white filter to this layer so the green applies a little more naturally. Depending on your blend mode, that might be really helpful. Especially if it's like overlay or something. Because if it's on like overlay and you lower the opacity, you'll see that the color shifts because the background or the layer behind it still has that the color of the cat. So I'm going to make this black and white, and I can do that by going to Adjustments next to Properties. This little tooltip is annoying. Okay, and then there is, oh my gosh, and then there's a black and white adjustment layer. Boom. Sometimes it automatically clips, sometimes it doesn't. But now, if I up the opacity, now it's completely green. So I can do that. Yeah, that looks good. We're almost there. We're almost glorpified. It's exactly what we want. So now, let's click on the layer with the cat on it again. And now we can go up top to Filter. And then we have Liquify. Now this is where the creativity kind of hits. So you are brought up in this area, and what Liquify does is it basically pushes the pixels around, and you can just kind of push them to make fun stuff. So that's how we can make the antenna of the glorp. So the very top tool here, the forward warp tool, I think is probably the best option for starting the antenna. So just start from where you think the antenna should be. I think it should maybe be around this area. So I'm going to go like this and just click and drag it up. Then I'm going to do it again to kind of push it again. And I'm doing this kind of outward shape on there, but you can do a straight up, or you can do, you know, you can do any kind of shape that you want. So there we go. That's a good start to the antenna. And then I like to use the bloat tool down the list, and with the kind of a big brush at the end, I like to just click and hold, and then that makes little round bits at the end of the antenna. Oh, that one's a little messed up. Let me do further back. There we go. Look at that. That's some gosh darned antenna right there. So you can do that. And then here's, you know, where some creativity comes in. If you want, you can increase the bloat tool a lot, and then you can make the end a lot bigger. You could do something like this, you know, whatever your heart tells you to do, you can do it. You can do that. I kind of like the smaller ones. You can do, what else can you do? You can mess around with all these tools a little bit. The bloat and the push, the forward warp are probably the easiest ones to use. So, like, if I wanted to, I could do, like, I don't know, I could make it, like, kind of in the middle, or I can just make it a lot skinnier. Something like that. I don't know. You can do whatever you want. And on top of the antenna, I don't like that. On top of the antenna, what you can do is you can make some wacko adjustments to the face. If you really want to. I like my cute cat, so I'm probably not going to change it much. But, you know, you can make their eyes bigger. Like so. You know, you can do that. You can do, you can use the pucker tool. And, I'm just going to go do something crazy here. Yeah, okay, why not? Kind of push that down. You can make their ears really long. I don't know. You can do whatever you want to make your cute little alien cat. You can do anything. Look at that! That's something. I'm going back to to just the antenna though. And boom! You got your own glorp. Now let's see. Let's compare it to the original here. This original glorp. So this one's a lot lighter. I think the green's a little more subtle, which I think is good. So to do that, I think I'll double click this green layer, and then we can just move it closer to the light, to the white area, and it'll desaturate it. I think it's a little better. I think it's also a little more yellow. Something like that. Yeah, something like that. And then I also think the cat just has whiter fur, so there's only so much you can do about that. I don't know. I don't know what else to do about that. But it's pretty good. Also, the eyes are kind of black on this cat. You know, it just depends on, obviously, what your cat's pupils are doing. If you wanted to, you could go in above these layers. You could make a new one. I guess below the filters, make a new one. And you could just paint, like, black spots where it's not black in their eyes if you really wanted to. I could just do that. And that. And just kind of fill this in. Like that, like so. That's pretty glorp core. And then maybe lower the opacity a little so it blends in better. There we go. And then I could add another layer, or I could add some highlights to it. So just switch it to white, and then just do like a white thing there and a white thing there, like here. And then I could, lower the opacity a little. I could change the blend mode to maybe just change it to like hard light, something like that. And then maybe I filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and make it a little more subtle there. You can do stuff like that. There's all kinds of fun stuff you can do to make your glorp. Let's see what it looks like with and without. That's silly. I think that's a little sillier. So I kind of like it without the eyes. So yeah, the possibilities are endless. You can do whatever. You can change the color. You can make a pink glorp if you really wanted to. There's so much you can do. I definitely prefer the green. Maybe something like this. That's pretty cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That is how to make a glorp. Now, if you wanted to, let's say, add some text to go along with your awesome glorp, glorp that shit out, don't tell nobody what you're going through, they don't really glorp, then that's pretty easy. All you really have to do there to add like a caption is, I think the easy way is just to use the crop tool and then drag it up, and that gives you kind of space to work with a little more. Hit enter. And then you can use a rectangle and fill in the spot, because I don't really need this. Oh, what happened to my... What the fuck? What happened to my antenna? I don't know how that happened. Okay, maybe I don't use the crop tool, because that was weird. I'll just do this, I suppose. Alright, there we go. And I'll put some text. Usually text on those types of memes usually it's Futura, I'm pretty sure. But you can do like an Arial bold or something. Make it like that. And then I'll go when the glorp decides to gleep, maybe, I don't know. You can do whatever you want. Oh wait, no, I got a good idea. Glorp when gleep shows up to the function. Wow, perfect. Perfect. I think that's great. That's awesome. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all you really need to know. You can do some other stuff with it. You can change the colors around. You can liquefy other areas, but this is pretty much what you need to do to glorpify your cat. All right, that's pretty much it for this one. So have a good day.